What are the signs of the universe? Have you ever felt that strange sensation, like something or someone is trying to get your attention? A coincidence that feels too precise. A whisper between the noise of everyday life. A message hidden in plain sight. These are the so-called signs of the universe, silent signals, delivered in subtle, mysterious ways. They're not random. They're meant to guide you, alert you, maybe even wake you up. But what exactly are they? Think of these signs as a symbolic language, a bridge between the visible and the invisible. Between your conscious self and something greater, deeper, older. Psychologist Carl Jung called it synchronicity, meaningful coincidences that seem to defy logic but carry undeniable weight. The question isn't whether these signs exist. The real question is, are you paying attention? Before we go deeper, take a moment. If you've ever had an experience that felt like more than coincidence, stay until the end. This might finally make it all make sense. Why most people don't notice these signs? The brutal truth? Most people are completely blind to the signs the universe sends. Not because they don't appear, but because most of us are stuck in noise, speed, and survival mode. We live trapped in routines, distractions, and constant digital stimulation. We've lost the ability to slow down, to actually listen. And when something doesn't fit our logic, we dismiss it as random or unimportant. But here's the thing, that blindness is a defense mechanism. It protects us from the discomfort of change. Because once you notice a sign, you can't unsee it. You're forced to act, to question, to grow. And growth is uncomfortable. The signs are always there. But most people have the volume turned down so low that they miss them completely. To see, you first have to be willing to look. How your brain filters the signs. Your brain is brilliant, but also a ruthless filter. Every second, it receives thousands of pieces of information. And to avoid sensory overload, it decides what you'll notice and what you won't. This is why so many signs go unseen. They're subtle. They don't scream. And if your brain isn't trained to value them, they vanish. This is called confirmation bias. We only pay attention to what fits our beliefs and ignore what doesn't. Confirmation bias is more than just a thinking flaw, it's a silent mental trap. When we choose to see only what confirms our beliefs, we're not just selecting facts, we're bending reality to fit our narrative. And that distortion? It's far from harmless. It validates lies, strengthens prejudice, and pushes us further from truth. In today's polarized world, confirmation bias can make two people read the same news and walk away with completely opposite conclusions. Why? Because each one is reading through the lens of their own convictions, not with the willingness to understand. The result? Debates turn into battles. Dialogue becomes a monologue. And the truth quietly slips away. Psychologist and Nobel Prize winner Daniel Kahneman, in his groundbreaking book Thinking, Fast and Slow, warns that our minds prefer coherence over truth. In other words, we often choose a comforting lie over an uncomfortable truth. But there's a way out. And it starts with something simple, but rare, doubting yourself. When you ask, "What if I'm wrong?" you crack open the walls of bias. When you seek out opposing views, not to attack but to understand, you reactivate your curiosity, and curiosity is the most powerful antidote to a closed mind. And when you learn to tolerate the discomfort of uncertainty, instead of rushing into the arms of certainty, you begin to truly think. Because real thinking hurts. But ignoring your own blind spots? That costs far more. The most common signs you might be missing. So what do these signs look like? They can appear in dreams, vivid, recurring ones that feel urgent or symbolic. Or in those repeating numbers, 1111, 222, 333, that seem to follow you everywhere. A song that plays at the perfect moment. A stranger's words that hit deep. An animal crossing your path just as you're thinking of something important. Even a book falling off a shelf. These are not random. The universe doesn't always shout. Often, it whispers through everyday moments, nudging you gently. But if you're not paying attention, you dismiss it. You shrug it off. And yet, time and time again, those who start noticing say the same thing. It was always there. I just wasn't ready to see it. If any part of this is resonating, pause and reflect. What's been showing up in your life lately, over and over? Write it down. It might not be random. The danger of ignoring when the universe starts screaming. Here's something most won't tell you. The universe is patient, but not passive. If you ignore the whispers long enough, they get louder. Until, one day, they become a scream. It may show up as a breakdown, a crisis, a moment that feels like everything is falling apart. But what if it's not destruction? What if it's the universe trying, one last time, to wake you up? Ignoring the signs doesn't make them go away. It just delays the lesson until it's too loud to ignore. As Joseph Campbell once said, what we call fate is just what we refuse to deal with. When you miss the signs, you're not just staying where you are, you're drifting further from the life you were meant to live. And sometimes, the cost of that disconnection is everything. How to start noticing the signs. So how do you begin? First, quiet the noise. Step away from your phone. Get still. Breathe. Be present. To silence the noise is not only to turn off the phone, it's to quiet the disordered stream of thoughts, the external demands, the constant need to produce or respond. It is an internal movement of emptying. Because only when the cup is empty can something new be poured in. Listening to the universe begins with slowing down. It means sitting in silence for a few minutes, no music, no stimulation, just breathing. And noticing that there is something more present, something subtle, that lives in the space between one thought and the next, between one inhale and one exhale. Reducing noise is a practice. It can take the form of meditation, walking in nature, silent journaling, or simply observing a cup of tea with full presence. It is in these moments that the collective unconscious, as Jung described, has room to emerge. That's when synchronicities become visible. That's when what once seemed like coincidence begins to feel like a message. The universe doesn't shout. It whispers. And to hear that whisper, we must silence not only the world's noise, but the noise within our own minds. As Blaise Pascal once said, all of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone. Listening to the universe begins, above all, with learning to listen to yourself. And that begins the moment the noise fades, and silence finally speaks. Then, trust your intuition. Logic is helpful, but it's not the only way we understand the world. Your gut, your instincts, they are ancient tools for decoding the unseen. Begin to notice patterns. Repeating themes, symbols, phrases. What keeps showing up in your life? Write it down. Reflect. Don't dismiss it. So you saw a sign. What now? Look for meaning beneath the surface. The universe rarely speaks direct. First, don't rush. Let the message land. Don't interpret with fear or haste. Ask yourself, what does this mean for me right now? How does this connect to where I am or where I'm afraid to go? And then act. Maybe it's time to let go of something. To speak a truth, to take a risk. Maybe it's a moment to pause or a signal to run. There's no universal answer, but there is one rule: don't ignore it. Take the smallest possible step in that direction. That's how transformation begins. You don't have to know the full path. You just have to move when the door opens. Conclusion: the invitation to awaken. We've reached the end of this journey. But in truth, it's only the beginning. You've discovered that the universe is not silent, it speaks all the time. It whispers through subtle signals, powerful signs. Signs that can shift the course of your life. But hearing these signs requires an awakening. A sharper gaze. an open mind, and a courageous heart. The universe speaks through symbols, coincidences, gut feelings, dreams, and fleeting sensations that may seem small, yet they carry a greater calling. These signs may be subtle, but they are powerful, and if you dare to listen, they can transform your path entirely. But for that, you need more than open eyes. You need presence. Listening to the universe means waking up, seeing beyond appearances, accepting mystery, trusting the invisible. This isn't about empty mysticism or blind luck. It's a living language, a deep connection between you and the world, between the visible and the unseen. It's what Carl Jung called synchronicity. When external events align with internal states, meaningful coincidences that reveal a hidden pattern. And once you make space for this communication, life stops being a random sequence of events and becomes a dialogue rich with meaning. The world begins to answer your deepest questions, and you realize you were never alone, only distracted. This is the real awakening. It's not about escaping reality. It's about diving deeper into it. Not about controlling what happens, but learning how to interpret the signs and walking with awareness. The invitation is simple. Awaken to the invisible. Trust your intuition and have the courage to act. Every sign is an opportunity, a chance to live more consciously, more wholly, more truly yourself. When you begin to perceive this, everything changes. Life stops being chaos and starts becoming a meaningful conversation. Each sign is a moment to break the unconscious loop, to stop just surviving and start living with purpose, with connection, with direction. So if this video stirred something within you, don't ignore that feeling. Like, share, and most importantly, tell us in the comments. What sign have you received and ignored? Or better yet, which one are you finally ready to hear? Because maybe this isn't just another coincidence. Maybe this was a calling.